Okay, we're there, buddy.
Uh,
We're good.
okay,
After
I'm
some
accepted.
after
Go
some
ahead.
after some technical issues, we are
Yep,
we are live. So
great. I just need to clear my browser now.
okay.
Okay, got it.
So Bruce, good to be with
Yeah.
you.
Yes.
I am grateful that you've made some time that we can talk about Shambhala. We can talk about Shambhala School. We can talk about Shambhala Energy, the life force, what Shambhala School is dedicated to, and yeah, this has been a core part of your work and your transmission. So I'm really grateful that we can go into this.
Great.
Cool. So, brother, could you begin by just speaking a bit about, so what is Shambhala School for you, and why did you found this experiment in the life force?
I think what Shambhala School for me is an experiment. It's actually a wild experiment. It's a bit
Mm,
like in weightlifting, when you lift a really big weight, then the smaller ones are easier.
mm,
And Shambhala was this totally new energy and
mm,
that's breaking into planetary awareness. And
mm,
for me, it carries the energy of such thrill, such
mm,
excitement, to the soul, that it's like Rumi says, one kiss you're ruined forever. Once I got a taste of this energy, is like actually nothing less than that. I
mhm,
want that.
mhm,
And everything else is pallid by comparison.
mm,
But like Ruby says, the price of kissing is your life. I mean, it's
mm,
so tied up with the death of the soul. It's so tied up with the energy of void and emptiness and
mm,
what lives at the core of the soul, that it's both incredibly fascinating, but also incredibly scary. So
mm,
Shambhala School was my attempt to help create a community who were shared the thrill of this life force
mm.
and could help safely download it in group formation.
Beautiful. Thank you. So can you say a few words about what that looked like? Like, when did you found Shambhala School, and where, and what did that look like in terms of the process of the school's life?
Yeah, well, it's linked into this idea of the temples of power, like the reemergence of the mystery schools on the earth, and I kind of had this crazy idea that I didn't want to wait. And so in 2000, at the time of the Shambhala impact, I got called to Mount Kailash in Tibet. And when I came back, I was just on fire with this energy. It was if like this great sword, this lightning came back and wanted to earth. It wanted to
Mm,
earth. So
mm,
what happened was this project on the physical plane at Haydn, where it's like the sword dropped into the earth, and because we didn't really know what we were doing,
mm,
we needed to create a community and an education platform that really listened to what that energy was trying to do
mm,
and how to hold it on the physical plane. Shambhala energy is like that lightning which touches and withdraws. And the essence was, if this was the beginning and experiment of what is coming, which is the descent of the planetary soul
mm,
under the impress of the Shambhala energy, which drives it into manifestation. This was an experiment of like, okay, how do we stand and hold this lightning somewhere in one place?
mm,
And so that having a project really helped, and it
mm,
was what kicked off Shambhala School. And then the project stayed on the physical plane for 3 years. And
mm,
after that, Shambhala School became, okay, so let's make a more global group that are holding this energy on soul level and waiting before it can hit the physical plane again.
mm, mm. Yeah. Okay. And why Shambhala? Like, why this word Shambhala?
I think because it distinguishes it from the energy of the soul. Like, I
Mm,
think many of the mystery schools work with the energy of soul, and many people are working with the new sphere or the subtle realms,
mm,
but the vision of Shambhala is that it's a deeper kingdom. It's the kingdom of the monad, or the kingdom of spirit,
mm,
that's required in order for the soul to fully manifest.
mhm,
So, the soul goes to Shambhala to get the energy from the void so that it can turn again and fully this time manifest on earth. So in the
Mm.
Christian story, it'd be like Jesus going to the Father and returning.
Mm.
And I think my interest was how to fully bring the kingdom of heaven into earth, so it's realized that it was here all along, the soul descending and manifesting in matter. And I think that's many people's vision. And Shambhala is the energy par excellence to bring that about rapidly. In fact, it's said that a taste of Shambhala drives people to hierarchy. In other words, this impact of Shambhala energy, which is crown chakra energy of the planet, is so forceful on the body-mind that it forces the body-mind into soul to take refuge, really, because the energy of purpose, when it hits powerfully, is like an electrical download. In fact, in my personal life, I ended up with a heart attack by downloading way too much lightning without enough of heart and soul. So the energy of Shambhala is used, like a remedial touch to drive one deeper into the heart and deeper into the soul. And that's the effect it has on many people.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay. There's a lot there. I'd love to explore. I mean, first of all, we're talking about power here. We're talking about divine power. And, there's a lot of communities all over the world whose focus is consciousness, who are developing forms of deeper love and wisdom, really. And, there's increasingly today, a lot of groups as well that are more focused on embodiment and focused on what it means to really unfold the intelligence of the body, the consciousness of the body, to allow that to move them. And Shambhala energy is actually something totally different to both of those, right? And it relates to power. And I know that's been a deep part of your path as well, which is your connection to power, the way power transmits through you, purpose also. Could you say a bit about that in your path, in your life?
Yeah, I think I'm a first-ray soul, and so power has had interest for me, and in particularly how to empower the soul and to empower consciousness. And I think the energy of Shambhala, the reason it's been released is because Earth is behind schedule. No, you don't need to be a wise person to look and see how the planetary civilization has atrophied and calcified and actually become a prison for the soul rather than what it should be, which is a place for the soul to sound through. So the Shambhala energy is being released, this energy of power and purpose. It's impersonal. It's not intended as a judgment or anything wrong, but it's basically the core of the planetary purpose, saying this is what we should be doing. Remember who we are and what we're for. And so the impact of that energy on the soul quickens it and results in an awakening, an acceleration of awakening. And that, to me, is what's required on the planet. So for me, reaching towards the Shambhala force was also a political act of spiritual politics, basically of saying, look, we don't have time for everybody to develop consciousness in the way that it is happening in the Western world. This consciousness evolution has to be rapid. And that rapidity is going to come by reaching deeper than consciousness, deeper than the soul, and calling on this dark, powerful energy of purpose, which, as I've said before, is like pouring gasoline on the fire of soul awakening, and it results in a huge quickening. But it does require people's consent. And so one of the essences of Shambhala schoolwork and of the work with power is finding those people who have come to play that game and are willing to give their consent and offer themselves in the quickening of the evolution of Earth.
Delicious. Awesome. Thank you. And could you say, let's talk about your path with this, how this came on in your life, like when this came on in your life.
Well, like everything, in hindsight, you see how things were there all the way along, just like the earth is sacred and the temple's already here. And I see in my own journey that energy was always a part of my component.
Mm.
But it came on powerfully, I think, in my 30s, and approaching 40, and realizing that the time was complete for me to have a personality focus. And it was time that I personally really needed to accelerate my evolution by reaching to the core reason I was on the planet, and just living that with no excuses and no compromise, and downloading the fullness of my personal soul purpose. Of course, in doing that, it connected me with the soul of my country and of the planet, and on, because that core life force is the same life force. So basically, it was an act of will on my part to say, I want to make the best contribution that I can make in the most leveraged way on this planet that I love, in a civilization that's breaking my fucking heart. So if hit me with lightning, and if that helps, then I'm willing for that. I want that. I'm asking for that. It's like, show me, reveal the power that actually is behind all things. I don't trust the powers that be on the planet. I trust there is a divine power. Reveal yourself. It's like going out into a lightning storm and putting up your and saying, look, reveal yourself. And if that will accelerate my evolution, and as a byproduct make a contribution, then I want it. So that demand, and I used to have a cry that my heart would call out for at particular times, which was, at a part that I may love still more, I wanted cracked. And I think Winston Churchill, used that quote, I grow by being defeated decisively by greater and greater energies. So making demand on spirit was a way of being hit and broken and opened and surviving and being hit again. And so that's the path I chose, because it's exhilarating to me, and it's the way I grow.
Shatter my heart so that I may love still more. Beautiful. Yeah, and I mean, I personally can relate. I think a place that you and I have always met deeply is our resonance with this path and our resonance with this energy. And I know that part in my own path, where I, at different points updated my just bring it invitation. And I also know, disclaimer for our community, what that can do. I know in my own part, I can remember a particular time as you're speaking where my commitment was, there needs to be beings of power and wisdom and extraordinary levels of love and intelligence on this planet now more than any other time in our collective history, possibly. Whatever needs to happen for my karmic cleanup to be fast-tracked so I can show up as an expression of that power, bring it now. And I know the power of that kind of invocation. I also know that, that actually brought a karmic burning, like a year and a half of intense, challenging karmic burning that, affected my health and all sorts of things, after that time. And I'm interested to hear from you about, you mentioned actually, you had a heart attack, like after this happened. And I wonder if you could describe a bit about that. And I want us to take it into this domain, what you said of, there wasn't enough love and heart present in your system for you to fully bring online this energy. Because one of the things that we're doing in Shamballa School, and I think we've always been doing, is building a field of love. There's actually establishing a field of love in our own system and building a field of love between us as the foundation for this energy to land and move through us. So I wonder if you could describe a bit about how that worked in your own journey and how you see that more broadly as well.
Yeah, well, I think early on in my journey, I was doing the masculine ascent path, top of the mountain. I had some spiritual ambition in there. I loved the thrill of it. And like a magician's apprentice, I overstepped myself and called forth, this energy powerfully, and for a good reason. Like it was the founding of these schools. And I also want to say that power doesn't really exist without vulnerability. And the other side of the thrill of power for me was the sensitivity to the suffering. Like for me, living on this planet with the oceans and the forests the way that they are, with human suffering in cities, and the degree of my vulnerability was part of the drive for calling forth this energy, like the frustration that this is not the way we're supposed to live. This is not the way I'm supposed to live. This is not what the planet is for. So there's an intense vulnerability that comes along with the demand for power. And for me, I wanted there to be a place that souls like me, like I was, and like the next generation could be, awaken and get a taste of the true teachings rather than the pap that I was, fed in universities. And so when it looked like it was going to be difficult to keep the center on the physical plane, I tattooed a lightning bolt on my chest, demanded, my resources from heaven, my divine inheritance is like, give it to me. Like I demanded, I'm a divine being, and I have a right to call upon the resources of the universe. And of course I do. And of course it came. And the result was that my body, in a way it got electrified, which gave me a mild heart attack. But afterwards, it was actually the turning on of the life force in a powerful way. In hindsight, I should have developed, and I have since developed, my feminine much more powerfully, and my love of matter and of the body, rather than, and that's what made all the difference in terms of bringing the energies that have supported the manifestation since. So, I think the way to Shamballa, it said, leads through the valley of the hermaphrodites, and there is a need to really deeply unify the masculine and feminine energy. Too much lightning and things burn, but too much water and everything just smokes, so somewhere between the fire and the water of the masculine and feminine is the path of wisdom.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, and I can relate to that in my own journey. That when this life moves through our being, it actually empowers the breaking open of our heart in a certain way. It empowers the recognition and experience of our own fundamental indestructibility, the dimension of our being that can never be touched, that is eternally free, that is the one. And it breaks open the heart to the beauty and the vulnerable power of what's here. And I know part of what Shamballa School is dedicated to is this direct path of the heart as well. And, part of working with the life force is that it doesn't necessarily require someone to have done a huge amount, to have reached the peak of the consciousness development mountain. And it doesn't require someone to be, kind of at the full depth of the valley as far as their embodiment is concerned. That this energy can come online through the direct path of the heart. I wonder if you could say something about that, about, what we know in this tradition as identification rather than just a focus on initiation.
Yeah, and I think it's been beautifully portrayed for us in the Christian story in the Piscean Age. I would say Shamballa is the fast path to crucifixion, and that energy of the heart, but also the fast path to resurrection. It's the agony and the ecstasy of awakening as a soul and realizing that you are not separate from all souls, and that you are responsible for the earth, not in a kind of martyred way, but in a deep way. And then the cry from the heart to offer oneself for that collective. It's Jesus on the cross saying, "Why hast thou forsaken me? Forgive them, for they know what they're doing." It's that willingness of the heart to say, I offer this heart on the altar of the great, heart. Hit me with whatever is required so that my love is worthy of my heart. And I don't think it's possible as a soul to live in full awareness without that yes coming. And people can develop consciousness and become very clever about it, but the heart is a direct path. And I think everybody's heart, if they fully allowed them to feel it, is broken open by the world. It's broken open by who they are and who we are and what we've come to do. And when we taste the core of the heart, that black hole that sits at the core of our heart, there is no choice but to give oneself. It's like, because it's not your heart anyway. It's the magnet of the universe. It's the organ of love that is the same in all of us. And what lives in our heart is the whole soul of humanity that's trying to burst forth in each person. So for me, I had to spend more energy trying to stop myself giving myself fully. And then when I let go, it's just a natural path of evolution. The heart wants to surrender on the altar of the collective love. And it's painful. It's terribly painful. There is no way around the pain, but the pain is legitimate suffering. It's the pain of actually being who we really are as divine beings and owning how we feel about that. And the path of suffering does lead to the path of ecstasy and the path of resurrection and the risen Christ and the sense of exhilaration that comes from not betraying yourself as love, from owning the whole thing, whether you live or die, it doesn't matter. Once you have owned the whole thing, then the joy comes, because the joy comes as a result of your willingness to be true to love. So I think Shambhala energy is required in order to speak the path of love, and accelerated by the calling upon the sacrifice and the download of power.
Yeah, I'm just breathing that in, Bruce. Thank you. And you mentioned there, you know, the black hole at the core of the heart, and something that's been part of your transmission, and it's related to the kind of cosmology of the life force, is this entering into human consciousness of the symbol of the black hole and the center of the galaxy. And I wondered if you could say some words about how the symbol of the black hole relates to the coming online of the life force in humanity's collective evolution.
Sure. Well, every cosmology, whatever is at the center, affects the whole cosmology. And when you put the black hole at the center, you put the unknown, you put the mystery, you put power, you put the void. If you've got consciousness at the center, you've got another whole civilization, which we're breaking out of. And I know that we are at a time of the planetary soul emergent, which means many people are coming carrying this dark light, this connection to the void, because that's what the coming civilization will be based on. And also what Shambhala School is, it's a call out to those people, you know, that they don't have a reflection around them of the fact that there is something in them that is a mystery, but that is beating like a drum in the core of their being. And they have a right to be called to, you know. So I feel like Shambhala School is trying to gather those who are naturally resonant with the life force and helping them understand what it is that is happening inside them. And the disciples and initiates of the planet that are here to bring the new civilization now number in their hundreds of thousands around the world. And we just can't see it yet, but the civilization is emergent. And what Shambhala School can do and what the temples can do is send out those networks of vibrational energy which quiver with the life force and respond. And most people who are responding, if I give a talk or something, is like they're feeling it in the core of their heart. It doesn't really matter what their consciousness is saying. They're feeling it deep inside them, that something in them is supposed to come to life. And that is coming to life in the process of receiving the transmission. And then it's just a question of getting out of the way. You know, like really the beautiful thing about the life force is it only requires one thing from you, which is everything, which is your full consent. Your full consent for that power to work in you. And it feels like all is lost, but all is actually gained. And the consciousness path, you give up a little bit at a time, 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 grow consciousness through a series of initiation. With the life force, you give up everything all at once together, you know, and I'm sure you've had that experience in your life. In fact, I know that you have, where it's like it just builds to a head, and you just decide everything. And when everything's given, then nothing remains. And what that nothing is that a vessel that love can work through genuinely, rather than a middleman, God and humanity playing a strategic role. You actually just become something that's empty, but that the life force can move through.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that. I know that time. I know that time in my own experience.
And it's thrilling, isn't it, to
Yeah.
be demanded of everything, like, but that there is a force that can demand that actually is daring enough to demand that of us,
Yeah.
and actually loving us enough to believe that we're capable of giving that. It
Yeah.
was shocking for me to have that realization, and beautiful.
Yeah. No, I can relate. And it's, I mean, because it is the power of God. And the
Yeah.
power of God is that free, and the power of God is that strong, and the power of God can hold everything and penetrate everything and be moved by everything. So, you know, I think, and that's in my experience, it's like the ravishing of the soul that comes through connection with this energy. And I know in my own experiences, you know, there's this wild and interesting teaching that you mentioned, which is the way to Shamballa is through the city of the hermaphrodites, or something along this line, which is, you know, there's something that is realized in the soul in this process where, like, my soul knows itself as, it's like a yoni being penetrated by the phallus of God, you know, and at the same time that's its inward facing orientation. Its outward facing orientation is this lightning as it moves through, and the sense of one's own absolute indestructibility, and the wave of this will not be stopped, you know.
Yeah.
And you can easily get, you know, okay, so this is actually, there have been power souls in the past who've stood alone and founded empires on the basis of this energy, not necessarily, you know, with varying degrees of love that have been part of their makeup as they've done that. And you know, something you mentioned, you know, we're in a civilization that's calcifying at the moment. We're in a civilization that is increasingly, you know, degrading. And what's coming is a civilization where the life force is foundational. That this is actually a foundational piece of what our civilization is based on. And I wondered if you could say something about that, from all your work, from the groups that you've run, from the organizations you've founded, from your experience of Shamballa School. What is your experience and vision of this life force centered civilization that can be born in the flames of ecstasy, whilst our current civilization calcifies and dies?
Yeah, well, first, you know, like, I don't think that there is a vision of it, because the whole point is that it is built out of the ecstatic current that is co-creating through our hearts. So all of the visionaries that are trying to project forward to the future, I don't think they have any idea of what this thing is. I think this thing is revelatory, and it requires us to get on our knees before it and give up all our imaginings of what it is, because it's going to be way vaster than anyone can conceive. And the second thing I want to say is that that a civilization based on life force has got a different quality of energy. And I figure that I'm just about now ready to be an elder. You know, I'm over 60 now. I've got a right to, like, know some shit from the life that I've lived, and have a platform to just download that. And I'm not going to be the kind of elder of the past, like, to go placidly amongst the world and serenity prayer and so on. It's like, fuck that. My transmission is, look, you are way vaster than you could possibly fucking imagine. And there's a much bigger game afoot than you could ever even understand. And there's something in the core of your heart that if you go there, and if you surrender to that, and if you let that wild fucking fire pour through you, your life is going to transform, and you are going to see the world transform around you. But you're not going to know what it is beforehand. You're not going to have someone come and give you a vision statement or a mission statement that you can follow. You're going to have to live wildly out of control from the center of your being, and it's going to feel fucking great. So just do it now. Like, don't wait, because when you can feel this moving in you, when you can feel the life force moving in you, it's everything. It's like losing that, and you've lost the whole point of your incarnation. And if you can fast track that, and if people get given that permission, instead of the stupid wisdom that we're given in the world at the moment, which is like, you know, have a purpose that is a mission statement, get a relationship, make a living, and then one day you'll self-actualize. It's like, that's such a crock. And I want to be part of a new generation of elders that say, Fuck that. That is not what you should be doing. What you should be doing is seeking inside yourself, finding that vibration of energy, which is your purpose. It's a living vibration, and bringing that into full expression in your life and in the world around you, and watch what fucking happens. Amazing things will happen. Whereas if you try to sit down and figure out and create a plan and implement that plan, then such small, petty things happen. Like having a really good individual personal life when our planet needs to play a much bigger game, and the affairs that are upon us are cosmic. So yeah, I can't see what it is. I feel what it is, and it's going to be amazing if we make it, and who knows how that will be. But I only know that there's no other way to live if you want to truly come alive, except live in the mystery, download it through you, find other people that are alive, build networks of life, and let the civilization based on that life reveal itself.
Awesome. Yes. Big yes. And what does that look like for you today? Like how does your life look like as an expression of this life force today?
Well, it's, sometimes I think I'm going to pop and splatter out on the walls. There's so much life force that, wants to come down. And that's what is amazing to me, that there is so many forces available for humanity.
Yeah.
Like the whole ascension path opened us up to the soul and beyond. And now those energies want to pour into manifestation. And so for me, what that looks like is creating places and temples where the awakening can happen faster, creating teachings that can spread the life force energy in the world, creating and helping spark mass movements of this energy because it's coming anyway. And just putting myself in the stream and the current of that life force. It's thrilling to me as it moves through, like for me, I don't even need to know where it's going. The electrical fire of what moves through me when I'm doing my work is itself already all of the payment and reward that I need. And my experience of that life force is it shifts things that need to move. It brings to an end things that need to end. And one of the things that is really important on the planet and a culture where it's almost like someone's glad wrapped the toilet bowl of the civilization. Like we can't get rid of anything, all of our concepts, all of our ideas, all of our clothes in our wardrobe, all of our rubbish tips. We can't get rid of anything. And this energy of power destroys what is no longer needed. It recycles it by reminding us that everything goes into the void, everything goes into nothing. And so it's exciting to live where everything is out of date all of the time. Your old identity, what you thought yesterday, whether you should turn left or right, it's like it's all out of date. You can't use the past to predict the future. And so that is an exhilarating ride. So I don't know what's going to happen next, but I know it's going to be exciting.
And could you just say a bit about, because about how this, as I witness you, I see a being who is radically alive with the transmission of this life force pouring through his heart. And I also know that you've done a bunch of work on and with yourself and with others in other areas. You've done you and I know each other because we both came out of a spiritual tradition that has the Shamballa teachings and so on, and a huge cosmology, and it's ascending. It allowed us to find that alignment and download a recognition of who we are as souls and what we're doing here and so on, and it's more ascending focused. And you've also had this life force move through you so powerfully that, as you described earlier, you've then gone on and done a whole lot of work around embodiment and around tantra and sexuality and so on. Could you describe how all these pieces fit together for you in terms of the path that you've walked and what you would actually advise others to do today? Because and something I want to touch on there is Shamballa school's been through an evolution. Shamballa school's been through an evolution of being of being inhabited by a bunch of beings who've done more consciousness work, and now there's a lot more people coming in who've done a lot more embodiment work and so on. Yeah, how you see all these fit together, and their importance for doing exactly what you just said, which is living this life principle day to day.
Yeah. Well, I think, Shambhala school started in this traditions, and these traditions are consciousness. And most of the traditions of consciousness have a light and dark, good and bad, quality that, you do these practices, you don't do these ones, you ascend or you don't descend, or, it's duality. Those are really good training fields to develop one side of it if it needs to be developed. But when you taste the void and power, it's like you go to nothing, and nothing automatically includes everything. When you go to nothing, then you can't believe in anything anymore. You can't believe in one set of principles over another set of principles, or one set of consciousness over another. It automatically, nothing embraces everything. Everything that is in the universe is supported already by nothing. So the nothing drives you to include anything that you haven't included before. It's a fearless energy that says, okay, maybe you've needed to develop this or develop that, but now go for everything. And, what was missing in Shambhala school was the body and the matter and the driving of the soul deeply into matter, and the recognizing that is as divine as the heights of consciousness, which even the consciousness teachings say. But once you get behind the duality of spirit and matter, then the nothingness that is behind it all starts to reveal itself. And that brings the power of the life force. And I think what it also does is it naturally synergizes whatever is needed, rather than, someone having to decide what's needed. So spontaneous synchronicity happens, synergy happens. Somebody else is making the soup, and it starts to include ingredients from all kinds of traditions and all kinds of ways. And instead of people huddling together around a certain teaching or consciousness, they're coming together around the life force. And I even love it if someone totally disagrees with every principle that I've ever held dear, but they're alive. My energy goes, yes, you're one of us. Like, I need to know the path that you've walked to that life, because the life is the same. Yeah. So I'm not attached to the path that I walked, and I'm not attached to any spiritual path. I'm resonant with life. And so if somebody can totally different approach, then that's something to embrace. And that's not the old teachings. The old teachings were like, you go this way, you don't go that way. So, that's exhilarating to me. It's exhilarating to know that there is no path that cannot be imbued and fully activated by the life force, which means that we're all eternally innocent. And it means that the journey is a journey of deep connection to life force, and we provide the love. So that's why the love is so important to develop first, because life force just empowers everything. But love is what chooses which thing is right for me right now in this relationship with you, or in this relationship that shines through the soul and the heart that directs that life force. And my particular interest is using the life force to empower love and to bring love into full blossoming in people's lives.
And I'm just reminded, as you're speaking, of the experience at Haydn that I had, and we've spoken about before, of what it means to have a life group. And this is what Shambhala school is focused on as well. It's like you can have beings who've walked very different pathways. Some have gone into the body and sexuality, some have done consciousness. But when you meet each other, there is this, I know the life that is thundering through your body, through your heart, through your soul is the same life that's moving through mine. And there is a meeting that can happen across huge domains of difference and diversity that is actually bringing together the life tribe. It's bringing together the life tribe around the world, and that's the focus of Shambhala school. So,
Exactly. And how to do that. Like if all of the financiers of the world got together and created a World Bank reservoir, or all of the conscious people get consciousness, how do the life people come and create a reservoir of life that actually not only inspires them, but actually has a gift to humanity, the particular gift of those who know the life?
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's what, we're coming together every Sunday in Shamballa School. And the focus particularly exactly is building the reservoir of this life principle. How is that do you have any words on that? So for the people who are coming together every Sunday, in terms of your experience of what it means to build a reservoir of the life principle?
Yeah, I think it's in the same way that when you're building love and you're working with the heart, you have to realize that the heart holds a lot of blood for the whole body. And the thing about power is it needs to be consolidated, not in the old way, because personalities want to consolidate their own power base, but the life force needs to be contained so that when it's demanded, when somebody is in a place where they are calling on the life force, you has a reservoir available. And so the work of building it and holding it is an important part of building a life force center. The question is where is it held? What is the container that holds the life? And I think, part of it is the amount of current that you're able to run through your own system. So continuing to have a bank, your own bank, which is a currency, which is the current of the life force able to move through you. So that's the bank. And then the other is the relationship between you, the heart connection between you that shares the life around and holds the life between you and amongst you, like lightning flashing between people. That's the reservoir.
Beautiful. Well, Bruce, thank you so much. This has been
and I also feel like it has a part in terms of consciousness development. It's got a part to do with the jewel and the lotus and the electric fire that goes between people's jewels that also can help hold that reservoir.
Yeah. And it has something to do with how we, how our personal fields exist as well. That's been a part of your work. It's to do with something that you've written about before, is what it means for us to be able to hold current as it moves through not just the higher chakras, but also the lower chakras. So, it's how we relate to it's Aquarian group. The vision of Aquarian group that's downloading is our capacity to navigate not just how our consciousnesses fit together and how our hearts fit together, but what's going on in our interpersonal emotional field, what's going on in our interpersonal physical field, what's going on in our interpersonal sexual field as well. Just before we come to a close, you say a bit about that in terms of what is required on the embodied levels in your experience for a community to be able to be available to hold and transmit life.
Well, it's what I said before. The world soul is externalizing, but most souls can't really get down into the lower chakras because they don't have enough will. And it's hard down there to transform some of the deep energies of jealousies and money issues and, survival issues. But when the soul contacts the Shambhala force and that dark light, it empowers it to descend. And then it can take by storm the emotional and sexual and other parts of our being and use that energy and that power for more love. And ultimately, once we get down to the physical, and that's what these temples are about, it needs to go into stones. Like the first rate Manu also rules earthquakes and matter. And I think these great temples in Egypt and other places in the world where the life force is anchored in stone. But the first has to make your body a living stone. So it's got to be able to come down through all of the chakras, vibrate through the cells and the atoms of the body. So the body becomes alive. And then it can transmit into the earth and into stone, and then the stone becomes a reservoir. It's not just the reservoir that we hold in our consciousness, it's held by the earth itself that's waiting, thirsty for humans to be able to allow this current of life force through them so it can activate the physical body of the earth and restore it, because we're kind of afraid that the earth is going to run out of resources. But matter contains enormous resources, but it does need the vibration of the life life force current through humans. And I think we don't yet really know why the earth has invested so much energy in producing the human race and put up with the way that we're handling the earth at the moment, because there's a much bigger game afoot. And I think that game has got to do with the life force.
Yeah, I feel that. I'm remembering actually there was a time where you said to me some years ago, you said we're not yet at a point in our evolution where when a father or a mother holds their child, their body is so resonating with the life force that just being in the arms of their father or their mother actually transmits this energy to the newborn child. And I've always held that dear in terms of what it means for this life force to be anchored in our bodies. And as far as the earth is concerned, a huge part of a core part of the teaching that you've brought through is that we're actually, all of these utopian visions of our collective evolution into a more and more conscious society and so on are preliminary. They're preliminary for actually the earth's transmission of life force, for the release of life force from the earth, through the earth into our cosmic environment and through the earth of our own bodies. That when that life force is anchored in the physical, then we start to see the temple of power. And I wonder if you had anything you wanted to share on that.
Only that, it's something that is ahead.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's part of the revelation that's coming. We don't know what it's going to be like yet to fully master matter. I think consciousness has penetrated the atom by fission. But when we are able to penetrate the atom of matter with full consciousness that has void energy behind it, then revelation is going to come. And matter is not going to be such a restriction to consciousness anymore. And the bodies are going to be revealed in a way that that we don't yet really understand. It's going to have implications on everything from health to environment to the culture ahead is going to not be a culture that's split between spirit and matter. It's going to be a culture that actually is on the inside of both. So I get glimpses in my life of that, but enough glimpses to know that they are only tiny glimpses of what will be coming in a global civilization. And that's why I say it isn't even worth trying to use the vision that we have now to predict the future, because the changes that are coming are so deep and so radical, and the energies that are emerging are so powerful compared with what we are currently using that, all prediction is mystical.
Yeah. And so what's possible now is life. What's possible now is journeying deep into our hearts and having the courage to say yes to the current and give our consent to being moved by life, as you described. So that's what Shamballa School is focused on.
And it's the great counter to fear, and the main thing that's still gripping the planet and individual lives and our collective lives is fear, survival fears, control issues of the base center, and so on. So many people who should be walking out with the life force into the new civilization are still trying to compromise. They're trying to gradually emerge. They're trying to emerge in such a way they don't lose their earning a living, and all of this is a slow consciousness path. Whereas when the life force comes, it fills you with so much fucking power and courage and vitality that walking out is not an option anymore. That offering yourself to the life force becomes the primary direction of your life. And it's not that you lose the vulnerability that gives rise to the fear. It's just that you lose your actions in the face of that fear, and you have something to draw on that is way more powerful than that fear and drives it away in the sheer, rush of what's moving through you. So for me, the piece that Shamballa School can do and the piece that I can do in the rest of my incarnation is encourage the surrender to the life force and trust that river will bring with it the future. And I think it's as radical a change on the planet as has happened at times of great species extinction or other great evolutionary leaps forward. We're leaping from sun to center of the galaxy. We're leaping from a 26,000 year precessional cycle to a 240 million year cycle. We're making a huge leap in time and space reality. And we are warping time and space reality in a totally different way, so that, this life force is the current of the change that we can't foresee yet, letting us know that this is the way. This is the way through the life force. Follow that and wait and see. So, if we can continue to sound that note, I believe more and more people are ready to hear it. More and more people are wanting to hear it and wanting to have permission to follow it.
Yeah, my heart beats deeper, and as my presence drops into that space of void, electric, infinite, empowered void that just roars through everything. Yes, deep yes, brother. And thank you so much for being the way shower that you are, for having been willing to throw yourself into the ring of fire first, and to burn so the rest of us can see, and to transmit this in a way where, I see you again and again and again in so many situations, communicating the wake up now, live now transmission. And it's such a huge gift. So thank you so much for having this time with us.
The beautiful, you, John. Let me just say one more thing, which is that I can communicate from a little bit the other side of the veil, because my life has, gone along so far now. And even though I was really slow in my own view of myself, I've achieved enough to be able to say to others, you know what? Jump earlier, faster, quicker. It's worth it. And I like to somehow convey the intimacy of the fire that we share, John. Like the thrill of being in life with someone, where everything is lost except that shared thrill of the life. And it's like a secret that that you want everybody to know, but you know that they want to question it, or they want to have a way or a path, but the secret is in the full offering of oneself into the life, and not dying, and instead living, and in that life knowing that life is unconditionally yours. It's not something you earn. It's not something you have to prove. It's something that is inherently your birthright. And to share that with you, and to increasingly share that with others and wider groups of people, makes life worth this journey, and it makes all of the suffering and all of the consciousness development work worthwhile. So thank you for being who you are and holding the torch that you're holding in your generation, and for helping initiate this process, following through so it reaches another generation of people.
Yeah, well, it's my ecstatic pleasure, brother. And that just as you're talking about that, it's like being on a surfboard in the ocean, and there being this monster fucking wave that is rolling up, and you can see it rolling, and it's approaching you, and you have that moment where you make a choice, and you can choose, I'm gonna go for it, or you can choose not this time. And in my experience, my connection to the life force has come from, I'm gonna say yes, and this may crash down on everything that I have. It may roll through and destroy my entire life, but the exhilaration of what it means to be truly alive is what I'm here for. And so when I relate with you, I know that there's that place of our shared experience, which knows the rush and the exhilaration of that yes, and everything that it rolls through, everything that it burns, and the fact that we do it again every fucking time forever anyway, because what it brings is the most exhilarating, alive, empowered expression of, the way I describe it, it's like the center of my being, that it's just God relishing in its own strength. And the relishing of that, the pleasure of that, the uncontained, untamed, unlimited nature of what we are, just flexing, like it's like the divine flexing its own muscles just for the pleasure of feeling its body, and that's a wave I'm willing to say yes to.
And it's hilarious, that many people throw at me, well, you kind of lost the way and you've gone towards sex and you've gone towards the base energy and so on, and I'm like, you have no idea, the life force is so much better than sex, and in fact the only way that you the only way that you can face the allurements of the lower chakras is if you have something so much better.
Yeah.
When it runs through that energy, everything is transformed. And the lack of capacity to explain what this experience is from the inside is itself, a source of great amusement to me. But I'm never going to stop trying.
I'm just remembering at my birthday this year when you were in Berlin, and in our collective kind of circle sharing that was honoring me for my birthday, you said, John, I know the best sex you've ever had because I was there. And in my mind I was like, wait a minute, what does he mean? And at the same, it's that moment. It's that moment. I know my soul knows that moment that your soul knows of saying yes to being ravished by the one, by the power and the life force of the one, and that is the most exhilarating experience that your being's ever known, and it's dancing there. So is mine, and that's part of the love that we share. Yeah,
that's true. Well, beautiful riffing with you, brother.
Yeah, this has been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for taking this time, and I know it'll be a huge gift to the community. And I know it's nighttime there. I wish you the best in sleeping after this conversation. Thanks for taking this time, my friend, and we'll do it again.
All right. See you, John.
See you, brother.